So I'm going to talk about book marketing in this video. This is going to be an in-depth video. I've been promoting books, helping people market their books for over 15 years, as hard as that is to believe. I first started working with a very large publisher, Atlantic Books, which is what launched my publishing company and promoting books. So I'm really going to cover all of the ways in which you can promote a book. I'm going to explain the background to book promotion, all the various methods that you can use to promote your book. And then I'm going to talk about what works today, and of all of the options available for you, what I think is the best way to promote a book in 2024. So if you were sat in front of me, if you were one of my clients, if you were someone who had just published with us, this is what I would be telling you to do to publish your book, to promote your book. So a little bit of history. Our first client, my very first client, was a company called Atlantic Books. And they came to me when there was this whole switch from you used to purchase ads on the tube or ads in newspapers. And it was all going digital, right? Social media was just coming into play. There was Facebook ads, all this new way of marketing a book. And so they trusted us basically to launch one of Robert Fabry's latest releases at the time. So he was already a best-selling author, but they knew that by using digital marketing, they could hopefully dramatically increase his book sales. And so they hired us, and that's exactly what we did. And that particular campaign, we ended up increasing their sales by over 600%. So as you can imagine, publishing company was very happy, the author was very happy, and they referred us to a large number of other publishing companies, a large number of other authors. And that's really where Publishing Push was born. And so we then move on from that point, and I'm going to talk about the ways in which you can promote a book. So of course you've got advertising, so things like Amazon ads, Facebook ads, Twitter ads are also very popular. You've got reviewers, journalists, small influencers. You can start your own website. There's a huge number of ways in which you can promote a book. So I'm going to run through some of these. So let's start with ads. So ads are of course a fantastic way to launch a book and get up and running really quickly, because you can create some copy, you can take some nice images, you can create a Facebook ad, a Twitter ad, Reddit is another great place if you're an author, and of course Amazon. You can get these up and running really quickly. The problem is that with a lot of these platforms, you used to be able to drive purchases of a book from places like Facebook, we're talking pennies, right? For then, selling a book at £10, £15, whatever it may be, for a paperback, hardback, and you had good margins on the digital. The problem with ads now is that cost per click and then cost per conversion, it's actually a lot more expensive than it used to be. So these days, unless you had a series of books, it's probably a bit too expensive a way to actually acquire a customer. So that's the problem that I see with ads. There are some exceptions to that. I would say Twitter and Reddit, you might find some good opportunities there. And again, this is all dependent on your book and your process, behind the marketing and how you want to build the campaign. Now, the other crucial element to a book launch, to book marketing and promotion, is reviewers, right? Without reviewers, there's no social proof that your book is any good and that someone should actually go and buy the book. So we always recommend using advanced reader copies. So before your book is even finished, what you really want to be doing is pitching a proof of that book out to reviewers. Now, the term reviewer is pretty broad, right? A reviewer can be anything. It could be your friend, family member, a work colleague, or it could be a journalist at The Guardian. Technically, these are all people that can read and review your book. So What I don't like about that term review is it's very broad. But this is a crucial element. So you need to collect reviews for your book. It doesn't have to be done before the release. There is this idea that if you don't get these reviews before, all is lost. It's not true at all. You just need to make sure that you get these, because when someone lands on your profile on Amazon, right, your sales page for your book, they're going to look at what did other people say about this book. Does it have good reviews? So make sure you get those, collect them on Amazon. Goodreads is kind of the secondary place to collect them. I would say get them on Amazon first and then look at Goodreads after that. It's kind of the next place that you want to go. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about journalists and basically how best to approach journalists. So when it comes to promoting a book through journalists, through media, the challenge you have is they are oversubscribed by people. People are in touch with them all the time, saying, review my book, please share it with your audience, write an article about it. And so the way we had success with this in the past is that we would pre-write an article for a journalist. So we would say, hi, Lucy at The Guardian, we know you like to review children's books, or let's say they review business books, whatever they review. Here is an article we've written about this new book that's been released. So what we're doing there is we're basically doing their work for them. So we're giving them a pre-written article that, in all honesty, all they have to do is just edit that article and they can use it, right? So we're saving them some time. Everybody else is getting in touch with them and saying, here's my book, please spend all this time, reading it and then reviewing it and writing about it. And we just kind of say, look, we've already done that for you. The other way to do this is to pick out pages or chapters and say, I think based on what you normally write about, review, you're going to love chapter 1 or chapter 2 or chapter 10, whatever it is. And if you send them a physical copy, you can say, I've actually, put some sticky notes, or I've underlined some pieces that I think are really relevant to you. So again, it's that personalization. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about how this hyper-personalization is really the way to go when it comes to marketing a book now. So that's journalists, and it's absolutely critical, right, to get some journalists on board if you really want a big launch, for your book. Small influencers is the other key item that are often overlooked. So a lot of people wrongly assume that it's all about big journalists, big media outlets. If you don't get someone with 1 million followers or whatever it is, right, it's lost. But actually, a lot of the bigger outlets, their followers are not necessarily as engaged. Sometimes you have these very small micro influencers, as to kind of coin the popular term, who may only have 1,000 or 2,000 people that follow them, but if they all engage with that person and they're like really highly engaged, well then you'll get, hopefully all of them will see that post, right? So you'll definitely get 2,000 people who'll actually see that post, engage with it, and hopefully go buy the book as a result. So that's small influencers. And then small influencers can also be people that right? So influencers, often people think that, when I'm trying to promote my book, it has to be someone with a big Instagram following or Twitter following or whatever it is. But the truth is that even your friend who has 50 followers on Instagram or 100 followers on LinkedIn or whatever it is, they can, again, all those 50 people are going to have a look at that book, and you really don't need as many people as you think to get a book going. So I often describe book marketing as you're starting like a very small little fire, and you don't need to put much fuel on the fire, right? It only needs a little bit, because what truly makes a book sell, what promotes a book, what grows a book, the awareness of a book, is still word of mouth, right? So all of these things that I'm talking to you about to promote your book, word of mouth is still the key part. We're trying to spark word of mouth with each of these. So we want someone to read the book, whether they find out about it through you telling them, or through an influencer, or through a friend or family member. If they enjoy it, then they'll tell someone, and that person tells someone who tells someone, right? So, me personally, that's how I get the vast majority of my book recommendations. Sure, I see some of them online, but usually someone says, oh, I saw this book online, I read it, it was amazing, I really think you're going to enjoy it. And that's usually, if you think about it, how most of us get our book recommendations. So this idea of these keeping it small, and I'm actually going to, at the end of this video, I will talk about some people who worked with us who had really small social media followings and now have best-selling books, right? So I'll talk a bit more about those in a little bit. So the next key thing, I've seen this used incredibly well recently. There's a chap called Noah Kagan who wrote a book called $1 Million Weekend, and he didn't do a huge launch for his book. What he did instead is he created these gift boxes. So the gift boxes that he created were personalized. So he sent maybe 100 of these in total. He does have some resources, but this would work with just 50 people, I have no doubt. So, imagine creating 50 nice little gift boxes, you put your book inside the box, and then maybe you give a nice, a nice pen or something, a nice tea bag for them to enjoy while they're reading the book, or a coffee pod, or whatever it is. And then I would also add something else that's obviously relevant to your book, and then something personal to them, right? Something that shows that, you haven't just had someone throw all these gift boxes together and ship them out. But as nice as that still would be, the extra trick with this is where you put something in there that's personalized to the person. And then obviously like a handwritten note as well is key with this. And so that book, rapidly became a bestseller, and these lovely little gift boxes. And the other reason behind this is people would share those across social media. So they would share the pictures of these gift boxes, of course, because who wouldn't? It's a lovely touch, and it makes them feel special, like, oh, this book is out there, but the author has specifically chosen me, sent me something personalized. So gift boxes with your book are really the hidden gem, and it doesn't have to cost as much as you think it would, right? We're not talking about gifting people like a Rolex with the book, right? Just a small personalized gift, just something that they would like. Or even if you wrote the card and told them about something, oh, I listened to this podcast and because of this, I think you would really enjoy it, or even gave them another book recommendation in there. Just something that's personal to them, doesn't have to cost a lot of money. Now, the other thing I want to talk about is a website for your book. So there's so many mixed opinions around a website for a book. A lot of people say you absolutely should have your own author website. A lot of people say you don't need one. My advice with an author website is, how big do you want to go, right? So if you've written a book and it's a memoir, and you just have always wanted to share your story, but profit or becoming a full-time author is not what your goal was, then you probably don't need an author website. If, on the other hand, your book was to promote your business, your personal brand, or you want to become a full-time author, so this is what you want to do, then absolutely you need a website, because the website then becomes the hub for everything. So it's where all your social media will link back to, it's where when you get a feature in a newspaper, it will link back to, because then you can show all of the books you've written. You can have a blog on there, you can collect emails for an email list, because if you're going to be constantly writing and growing in this as a profession, that's what you need. You need somewhere for people to come and find you. So that's my thoughts on a website. The website itself doesn't have to be expensive or incredibly detailed. You can probably get a website built for £1,000, right? That would do absolutely everything you needed to do and fully customized. potentially even one that was slightly cheaper. You could use a template, for example. So for a few £100, you could have a website set up, and you'd be off to the races with what you would need. Now, the other key element is social media. So a lot of authors think, I don't want to do social media to promote my book. I just don't want to be on there all the time. So again, this point is a little similar to the first one I raised about a website, right? How big do you want to go? And to add to this, like I said, I'll discuss at the end some examples of some best-selling authors that had very small social media followings and didn't really rely on them that much for the promotion of their book. So if you are going to do social media, the easy way is to copy what works. And what I mean is, don't copy it exactly. So don't find a post that someone's used to promote their book and swap the image of their book out, swap the image of your book in, right? That's not what I mean by copy what works. What I mean is that if you see someone who has a great Instagram account that promotes their book, have a look at what it is that they're doing, why their audience likes that, why is it working, why is it resonating, and then take that and obviously put your own spin on it. It could be that, they really like the fact that they're reading a chapter from their book and they read it in a nice setting, and whatever it is, just figure out why those posts are working and then do your own versions of those. So that's how I would say with social media. But social media is not an essential item, and I'll discuss that specifically. The other thing when it comes to book marketing is email lists, right? So an email list is liquid gold if you're an author. So if you don't have one, start building one now. And again, you don't have to have this to launch a book, have a successful book, but an email list is just a list of people who, anytime you send something out, they are probably going to open it, read it, engage with it. And so email lists can be very small but powerful. And so building one, even if you're watching this and you're not even sure the book you're going to write, start building an email list. It can just be sending out your thoughts on writing or your personal thoughts or whatever it is. Just start building a list of people. That's my I would absolutely say to do that if you can. There's loads of free tools to do it, and there's some you can pay a very small amount for that will give you a lot more kind of functionality. And so podcasts is the other thing. If you're thinking about book marketing and you really want to push your book marketing, that is something crucial to think about. They are incredibly powerful these days. Again, they don't have to be big, so much like email lists, it doesn't have to be that the podcast has tens of thousands. It can be a very small podcast, as long as the people are engaged, with the content. So finally, I said I would talk about some success stories. And the success stories kind of tie into where book marketing is going, and there's some key lessons from these success stories that you can learn. So I'm going to talk about two people. I'm going to talk about, let's talk about three people actually. I'm going to talk about three people. This is going to be a long form video covering lots of different topics about book marketing, so let's go the whole way. So the first person I want to talk about is Laura Bird. You can find her on our website under Success Stories. She wrote this incredible book all about her journey, from she was very depressed. She, even tried to commit suicide. And this book is all about her journey of how she turned her life around, how she found new perspectives, how she found running, and how running helped her, to really push herself forward and change her life. And when she first launched her book, she had 200 followers on Instagram, and that was the only social media she had. And from that, she created a best-selling book, a book that was actually outselling Mo Farah's, biography at one point. So a really incredible achievement. And what Laura did was, of course, she promoted her book to her small audience, but all of those people knew Laura, right? They were all her friends and family. It was a small Instagram account, a small personal, private Instagram account even. So they all went out and bought the book, right? So instantly 200 book sales, right? Right there. And then, of course, all of those people naturally went and told friends and family when they enjoyed the book and they said, wow, this was incredible. It was amazing to hear your story. More sales, right? So those 200 probably led to 400. They went and told people, you know. So you see how, again, it's the network effect that drives book sales, book marketing so much. The other thing that Laura did really well is she continued to do things that were newsworthy. So she would run marathons, she would do charity events, and it was all linked back to her book, right? She would do talks, she went into local libraries. And all of these things is what created the success of her book. And again, it was small. She would send a book out, you know, to a few people here and there. So I just think that's such a wonderful case study for it wasn't this huge, you know, campaign. And on top of that, she didn't launch the book and then do a load of marketing and then leave it, right? She understood it was a marathon, right? It wasn't a sprint. She kept on promoting her book. And that was really the key to her success, right? Never stop promoting your book. And then Rebecca House is another great example. So again, you can find this one on our success stories on our website. Similar situation, right? Very small Instagram account. Promoted it, you know, to that audience. The key with Rebecca, and this is the other item, you know, when I go back to what I said earlier about how you know, we are just starting a very small fire and then you're just pouring a tiny bit, you know, of fuel on the fire. Because the story was so good, it resonated with people so much that, again, they told other people. And so the bit about book marketing that is often forgotten about is if you've written an amazing story, an incredible story, you know, a story that you read and you have to tell people. I mean, take this book, for example, right? This is a best-selling book, The Wager, which I read recently. It's just so good that you can't help but tell people, you know. So, of course, you know, I walked, I saw it on the shelves, you know, in Waterstones, brilliant book cover. Another key point about book marketing which grabbed my attention, you know. But then it's just so well written, such an interesting book that I've told pretty much everyone I know about this book, and I guarantee that's led to more sales because I've had friends say, oh yeah, I bought that book and it was incredible. So really it starts from that small seed, and that's, you know, how it grows from there. And then the other example is, again, this is on our success stories. So is this gentleman, and his approach really was a lot more, he was willing to shout about it more. So it's Chris Donaldson and Going the Wrong Way. And his approach was to be very vocal about his book. So he was posting all over the internet, posting all over social media, getting as many reviews as he could, approaching local radio stations, news stations, and it's worked. You know, he has done tens of thousands in sales. So you've got kind of two approaches there. I would say both the first two examples, so Laura and Rebecca, and then the final example, Chris, all in all have sold the similar amount of books. I would say maybe Chris has edged it slightly. Rebecca, though, will probably long-term outsell everyone, I think, you know, from those examples, based on how her reviews are going, based on a few things that have come off the back of that book, which we can't talk about yet, but are very exciting, will definitely help with the marketing. So yeah, I wanted to show kind of a few different ways to promote marketing and book marketing. So I think another reason there's a lot of confusion around book marketing is there is no solution, right? There's no silver bullet. But if I was to break it down into some key pillars, of course, number one, you need to write an amazing book. That's first and foremost. Your book has to be incredible. It has to be, you know, capture people just so much that they can't help but tell someone about the book. And that's really, when you're writing your book, think about that, is when you reread it with a different lens. If someone read this, could they just not help but tell someone about this book? And that's, pillar number one. The second pillar is that you don't need a big audience, you just need a small, engaged audience, right? So that can be done through an email list, through journalists, through social media, right? There's so many different ways it can be done through your own website. But you just need that small seed, and then, a tree will grow from that. And those really are the two pillars. The final pillar being, if you can do that on launch, is do those hyper-personalized gift boxes. I just think there's such an easy way to get, and it's also the other key thing, this reminds me of a key marketing pillar, is a lot of people approach reviewers, journalists, friends, family with an expectation. So it'll be a case of, here's my book, I expect to review a recommendation, a feature, an article. I expect something in return. And that's the worst way to approach book marketing. You really want to approach it from the perspective of, especially with those gift boxes, it can't say like, please leave a review. It's implied, right? They already know that's why you've done it. So don't ask again. That will just put them off. The key is to ask with no expectation of return, and you will get more reviews that way than you otherwise would. I hope you've enjoyed this video, my thoughts on book marketing, the past 15 years of how we've been promoting books, where book promotion is going long term, and I look forward to seeing you in future videos.